Hello and welcome everybody to my 2023 record predictions series. In this first video, I'm going to be going over my AFC East record predictions. And of course, for the series, I'm going to be giving a record prediction for every single team in the NFL and going in-depth detail on why I give these record predictions. I did this last year and had a 73% success rate for my record predictions in 2022, and we're going to try to boost those numbers this year. So let's get right into this video breaking down the AFC East. Starting off with the New England Patriots. In 2022, they went 8-9. They finished 9th in the AFC. They had some moments when they were a really efficient team, and then they have some moments where they were flat out beat. This could be attributed to Mac Jones, their first round pick in 2021, having a down year with 14 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. And their offense as a whole was very up and down in 2022. Ramondre Stevenson was great, going over 1,000 yards and 5 yards per carry, but their passing game was just off. Mac Jones had a below average passer rating of 84.8, and they were only able to put up 208 passing yards per game, with only 19 passing touchdowns on the year. This can be attributed to Matt Patricia being the offensive coordinator for 2022, when Matt Patricia is a defensive coordinator, and he and Mac Jones did not get along. But their offense should improve in 2023 as they hired Bill O'Brien as their offensive coordinator, former head coach of the Houston Texans who last made the playoffs in 2019. He should install a lot of RPOs and a lot of quick pass game, which is Mac Jones' bread and butter. Expect him to have a better year in 2023. Offensive additions like Juju Smith-Schuster and Mike Gesicki should be a good add to the offense as well. However, they are losing Jacoby Myers to the Raiders, who was their leading receiver in yards and touchdowns in 2023. Hopefully, he should be supplemented by Juju Smith-Schuster. However, I do think Jacoby Myers is a better receiver, but Juju should probably be better for the scheme. My concerns on the offense start with the wide receiver group. I like Juju Smith-Schuster, but not enough for him to be my wide receiver one. I think Tyquan Thornton has a chance to break out, but other than that, Devontae Parker is just okay enough for the system. But other than that, they are definitely missing depth at the position. However, I really like their offensive line, but they are missing a running back too. But their defense obviously headlines their team with Matthew Judon, Josh Uche, Jonathan Jones, and Kyle Duggar. Patriots Levin Devin McCourty just retired in 2022, but I think their defense does take slight regression. Bill Belichick is obviously a defensive mastermind, but I think they are starting to lose out on talent. However, expect Christian Gonzalez to go right in there and be a great cornerback for them. And Christian Barmore could also be a breakout candidate. I think the Patriots follow a similar trend as they did in 2022, which is have a losing season. I think that after Tom Brady left, Bill Belichick's weaknesses were officially highlighted. They don't necessarily recruit a lot of elite talent in free agency. In the 2021 offseason, they paid the most amount of money in free agency, but only a few guys like Matthew Judon and Hunter Henry have even stuck around from that offseason. A lot of players don't want to go to the Patriots due to their military style of training. But since they're no longer really contenders, people don't want to go through that regimen without being guaranteed a spot on a championship roster. The Patriots have the 4th hardest strength of schedule in 2023 due to their extremely tough division in the AFC East. And I think the Patriots ultimately struggled throughout the year, but are competitive enough to win games. I think that their defense slips out of the top 10. I think their offense doesn't even reach the top 15. I think they struggle a lot within the AFC East, as talent has flooded to the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills. And during next offseason, I ultimately see them shipping off their old talent. Even though I have them as a losing season with double-digit losses, I don't think we've seen the last of Bill Belichick. I think there's a potential for him to have 1 or 2 more years left, but I think the Patriots should ultimately start their rebuild. One of my hot takes for the 2023 NFL season is I think the Buffalo Bills will struggle more than people think. The Buffalo Bills were a very good team in 2022. They went 13-4. They had the highest point differential in the NFL. They were first in team DVOA per Football Outsiders, second offensive DVOA, and 4th defensive DVOA. They were a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. But they showed signs of a lot of struggle in 2022. The Bills' offense didn't look comfortable against the Jets' young defense, and the Bills' defense especially did not look comfortable against the Miami Dolphins' offense. In the playoffs on national television, they struggled against Skylar Thompson for the Miami Dolphins, as they put up 31 points on the Bills' defense. And obviously, they lost against the Bengals in the divisional round. And at the end of the Bengals game, it seemed like Stephon Diggs was extremely frustrated with Josh Allen, as you can see in this clip. And then in the offseason, there was turmoil between Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills, as he went on a hiatus and was late to OTAs. And to go along with the Stephon Diggs situation, which hopefully isn't that big of a deal, the Buffalo Bills have other problems on their hands. Their division got a whole lot more competitive, and the 2 teams they struggled with the most in their division got a lot better. And I'm going to get to the Jets and the Dolphins later. In the offseason, the Bills really didn't add anybody. Along with not really signing anybody, they lost Tremaine Edmonds, a 2-time Pro Bowler, to the Bears. They also let Devin Singletary go in the offseason, and he led their team in rushing yards for the last 4 years. Now, I don't think those 2 departures are their biggest losses, but I think the biggest questions on the defensive side are the injuries. How will Von Miller and Micah Hyde come back from both season-ending injuries, especially with Von Miller with his ACL tear? On the offensive side, they're really missing a wide receiver too. Gabe Davis is a pure deep threat. I like their tight end room a lot with Dawson Knox and now rookie Dalton Kincaid, who they drafted in the first round, but I really think the Bills are going to struggle with depth, especially in the wide receiver room. And then on the defensive side, how are they going to perform with Von Miller coming back from that ACL tear? Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are both going to be over 32 years old. Tre'Davious White, in my opinion, struggled coming off of his ACL tear, and they're relying on a lot of young depth, and they're going to need a lot of players to step up. Although Matt Milano should be a good plug-in at linebacker. But I don't think it's crazy to say that the Bills could struggle in 2023, as they have the 7th hardest strength of schedule, and obviously one of the hardest divisions in the NFL. But the duo of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, but I think their roster is still very good enough to compete. I see them having a slight regression, and I think they definitively struggle at time in the season. But overall, I have them going 11-6. But if you look closely, I have them coming in at 6 in the AFC. That's how good I think the AFC is going to be this year. Moving on to my favorite team in the NFL, which is the New York Jets. I think we see a massive season from the Jets in 2023. After week 12 in 2022, the Jets were 7-4 after a decisive win against the Bears, and were well on the way to making the playoffs. But after quarterback injuries plagued the Jets, they lost 6 straight to go 7-10 to finish the season. However, their Achilles heel is now solved. After trading for 4-time MVP Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback position will now be solidified and be extremely consistent and elite. To go along with their insanely good defense for how young they are, there are times where the Jets should cruise in 2023. The main problem in 2022 was their passing offense. They were the worst qualified passing offense according to PFF. But now with Aaron Rodgers, their offensive efficiency and output will increase tenfold, as well as rookie studs like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall returning to the offense in 2022. Breece Hall is the biggest question for the Jets offense in 2023. He tore his ACL in week 7 against the Broncos, but ran for 5.8 yards per carry in his 7 games played. He was the key to their offense and especially their running game, and the Jets will hope that he comes back strong and healthy. Over the offseason, the Jets engulfed the Packers roster, as they traded for Aaron Rodgers, signed Allen Lazard to a 4-year deal, brought along Randall Cobb, signed Adrian Amos, and signed offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett, as well as re-signing Quincy Williams and McCole Hardman. And the Jets were also able to sign Quinnen Williams to a 4-year, $96 million deal. The Jets vastly improved their offensive depth chart in my opinion, with Aaron Rodgers, Allen Lazard, McCole Hardman, as well as hopefully the offensive line finally being healthy, with Mekhi Becton returning at right tackle, and Elijah Vera Tucker returning from his tricep injury. But the Jets' defensive roster is their bread and butter. The Jets should have a top 5 defense again in 2023, as well as probably being the best pass defense in the NFL, with all pros such as Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, and Pro Bowlers like CJ Mosley, and a bunch of underrated players like John Franklin Myers, DJ Reed, Michael Carter II, Jordan Whitehead, Bryce Huff, and Carl Lawson, as well as Quincy Williams. The Jets should have one of the deepest defenses in the NFL. The Jets should truly cruise on defense. Now that their offensive issues have been settled, and they retained most of their elite defense, I think the Jets will have a very solid 12-5 record, and be in competition to win the AFC East. I see them finally snapping the 12-year playoff drought, and making the playoffs as the 5th seed. I have the Miami Dolphins not only winning the AFC East, but in reality being an arguable top 5 team in the entire league. I truly think that the Dolphins will be one of the best teams, not only on offense, which is already an elite group, but their defense improved vastly. In 2022, they were cruising in the beginning of the season. Even with a Tua Tagovailoa concussion in primetime, the Dolphins were 8-3 through week 12. After finishing the season 9-8 and making the playoffs, they gave the Bills a run for their money in the playoffs, scoring 31 points with Skylar Thompson as their quarterback. And that quarterback room was like musical chairs. Tua Tagovailoa was out with multiple concussions, Teddy Bridgewater had multiple injuries, and rookie Skylar Thompson had 100 attempts on the season. But their passing game was so elite in 2022. Trading for Tyreek Hill was an absolute godsend for them. Jalen Waddle put up 1,300 yards in his sophomore season, with Tyreek Hill even finishing 2nd in the league with 1,700 receiving yards. And Tua was very efficient and accurate. He had a 105 passer rating and was 3rd in QBR with 68.8. Unfortunately, their Achilles heel was their defense. They allowed multiple 30-point games, and the Dolphins would easily have double-digit wins if it weren't for some blown leads. But their defense should be no problema in 2023. In the offseason, they hired Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator and made a blockbuster trade for Jalen Ramsey, and he should be an incredible help for their secondary. They even signed an underrated stud David Long Jr. on a 2-year, $11 million deal, who should be a great inside linebacker who stuffs the run. My biggest concern for the Dolphins in 2023 is Tua's health. He even admitted that he flirted with retirement after multiple concussions. But if Tua stays healthy for hopefully the majority of the season, they should at minimum have a top 10, probably top 5 offense in the league, with arguably my favorite favorite head coach in the league, Mike McDaniel. They have a great running back room with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Probably the best duo of receivers in the league with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. An offensive line that should be solid. And obviously a phenomenal offensive system. But the thing I'm most excited for is going to be their defense. Christian Wilkins is one of the best run defenders in the NFL. Jalen Phillips is extremely underrated and I think he makes a Pro Bowl. David Long Jr. was a phenomenal acquisition. They're going to have a full year of Bradley Chubb, who they acquired midseason in a trade with the Broncos. And their secondary with Javon Holland, Jalen Ramsey, and Xavier Howard should also be very solid. The one thing that'll inhibit the Dolphins is their extremely difficult strength of schedule, the second hardest in the league in the preseason. However, I think that they show their dominance in 2023 and have a 12-5 record. Even though they have the same record as the Jets, I think that they'll ultimately come out as the victors for the AFC. However, the Jets, I think, will come in very closely at 2. It's between the Dolphins and the Jets for the AFC East title. But for the Dolphins, I think they project as a top 5 offense, and I think their defense takes a massive step up and even enters as a top 10 defense. However, I think they don't eclipse the 13-win mark and make the playoffs as the 3rd seed in the AFC. To quickly recap my AFC East record predictions, I have the Dolphins going 12-5 and making the 3rd seed, the Jets going 12-5 and being the 5th seed, the Buffalo Bills going 11-6 and being the 6th seed in the AFC, and the Patriots falling at 4th at 7-10. I think that the AFC East is going to be an absolute blood battle and be extremely competitive. In my opinion, there are 3 top 10 teams in this division, and the Bills, Jets, and Dolphins are top 5 teams in the AFC. In the conversation with the Bengals and the Chiefs. This should be an extremely fun division to watch in 2023, but make sure you let me know your record predictions for each of these teams. Let me know how you think they're going to perform, but make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know how you thought about this video, and make sure you stay tuned for the entire record predictions series. I'm going to be doing a record prediction for every single division and every single team in the NFL. Again, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.